Captain Sarah Chen floated in the medical pod, her body covered in bruises and cuts from the crash landing. The alien ship's sterile white walls hummed with an eerie energy that made her skin crawl. She had been unconscious for hours, maybe days. Time meant nothing in this place. The Zephyrians had found her escape pod drifting near their mining colony on Kepler 442b. Her patrol ship, the UES Defiance, had been destroyed during a routine reconnaissance mission gone wrong. The enemy had been waiting for them, hiding behind the asteroid field like hunters stalking prey. Sarah's crew of 12 brave souls were gone, vaporized in an instant when the Zephyrian dreadnought's main cannon pierced their hull. She had barely made it to the escape pod before the ship's reactor went critical. The explosion had lit up the darkness of space like a dying star. Now she was their prisoner. The pod's transparent lid hissed open, and Sarah felt the artificial gravity pull her down onto the cold metal floor. Her legs were weak, but her spirit remained unbroken. She had survived worse than this during the Martian Rebellion. These aliens would learn that breaking a human was not as easy as they thought. Commander Vex 9 entered the medical bay, his tall insectoid frame clicking against the floor with each step. His multiple eyes studied Sarah with the cold curiosity of a scientist examining a lab rat. The Zephyrians looked like a nightmare mixture of praying mantis and spider, with 6 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. "The human awakens," Vex 9 spoke through his translation device, the mechanical voice devoid of emotion. "Your species fascinates us, Captain Chen. So fragile, yet so persistent." Sarah pushed herself up against the wall, her military training keeping her posture straight despite the pain. "I want to speak to whoever's in charge of this ship." Vex 9's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You are in no position to make demands, human. You are our guest now, and guests must follow the rules of their hosts." "Guest?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "You destroyed my ship and killed my crew. That's not very hospitable. Your vessel entered our territory without permission. We merely defended what belongs to us." Vex 9 moved closer, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh lighting. "But we are not unreasonable. You will be treated well, provided you cooperate with our research." The word research sent a chill down Sarah's spine. She had heard stories from other prisoners of war. The Zephyrians were known for their biological experiments, always seeking to understand other species' weaknesses. They collected specimens like trophies. What kind of research? Your species has proven remarkably resilient in our ongoing conflict. We wish to understand what makes humans so difficult to defeat. Your psychology, your biology, your social structures. Vex 9 gestured with 2 of his arms. "You will help us unlock these secrets." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I'm a soldier, not a lab rat. I won't help you find ways to kill more humans." "Oh, but you will." Vex 9's voice carried a threatening undertone. "We have developed quite effective methods for encouraging cooperation. Pain is a universal language, Captain Chen." 2 more Zephyrians entered the room. These ones clearly guards based on their bulkier armor and weapon attachments. They flanked Sarah on either side, their claws extended as a warning. "Take her to Detention Block 7, Vex 9 ordered. Begin the preliminary psychological evaluation. I want to know everything about this one's mental composition." The guards grabbed Sarah's arms with surprising gentleness. She had expected them to be rough, but their touch was almost clinical. They led her through corridors that stretched endlessly in all directions, past rooms filled with strange equipment and other alien prisoners from various species. Sarah made mental notes of everything she saw: guard rotations, camera positions, potential weapon storage areas. Even as a prisoner, she was still a soldier. Escape was always the mission. Detention Block 7 was a series of small cells designed for different alien physiologies. Sarah's cell was clearly meant for humanoid species, with a simple bed, a waste disposal unit, and a water dispenser. The walls were smooth metal with no visible seams or weaknesses. As the force field activated across the cell entrance, Sarah sat on the narrow bed and began to plan. The Zephyrians thought they could break her spirit through torture and experimentation. They believed humans were just another species to be cataloged and understood. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Hours passed before her first interrogation began. The Zephyrians had many questions about human military tactics, Earth's defenses, and the psychological profiles of her crew. Sarah answered each question with her name, rank, and serial number, nothing more. The interrogator, a smaller Zephyrian with scientific markings on his carapace, seemed frustrated by her responses. "Your silence serves no purpose, human. We will learn what we need through other methods. Then you'll be disappointed, Sarah replied calmly. Humans don't break as easily as you think. We shall see. The scientist activated a device that sent waves of pain through Sarah's nervous system. She gritted her teeth and endured it, drawing strength from her training and the memory of her fallen crew. Each surge of agony was dedicated to Lieutenant Morrison, who had saved her life during the evacuation. Each moment of suffering was for Sergeant Park, who had stayed behind to manually seal the breach in their hull. When the session ended, Sarah was returned to her cell bruised but unbroken. The Zephyrians had expected her to crack within the first hour. Instead, they found themselves facing something they had never encountered before, a human who refused to surrender. Over the next several days, the interrogations continued. The Zephyrians tried different approaches: psychological manipulation, sensory deprivation, chemical agents that were supposed to lower her resistance. None of it worked. Sarah's human stubbornness proved to be an insurmountable obstacle. What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that humans had been breaking each other for thousands of years. They had developed resistance techniques, mental fortifications, and an unshakable belief in something greater than themselves. Sarah carried the hopes and dreams of everyone she had ever served with. She was not just one human. She was the embodiment of her entire species' refusal to give up. As Commander Vex 9 reviewed the reports from the interrogation teams, he began to realize that they had underestimated their prisoner. The human was proving to be far more resilient than their models had predicted. Perhaps it was time to try a different approach. Sarah had been in captivity for 2 weeks now, and the Zephyrians were growing frustrated. Their usual methods of breaking prisoners had failed completely. The human woman sat in her cell, battered but defiant, her eyes still burning with determination. Commander Vex 9 decided to take a more personal approach. He dismissed the guards and entered Sarah's cell alone, his massive frame casting long shadows in the artificial light. You continue to resist us, Captain Chen. This surprises my research team. Sarah looked up from where she sat meditating on her bed. Surprised that a human has a backbone? You clearly haven't studied us very well. On the contrary, we have studied your species extensively. We know about your wars, your conflicts, your tendency toward violence. We understand your biology, your weaknesses, your fears. Vex 9 settled into a position that might have been sitting if he were human. What we do not understand is why you continue to fight when you have already lost. Have I lost? Sarah's voice carried a hint of amusement. I'm still breathing, still thinking, still planning. That doesn't sound like losing to me. You are alone, surrounded by enemies with no hope of rescue. Your ship is destroyed, your crew is dead, and your government believes you are missing in action. What could you possibly be planning? Sarah smiled, and something in that expression made Vex 9 uncomfortable. You really don't understand humans at all, do you? We're not just individuals fighting for ourselves. Every human carries the strength of everyone who came before us. Primitive ancestor worship. We expected such superstitious behavior. Not worship. Memory. Sarah stood up, her movements fluid despite the injuries she had sustained. Do you know what my grandfather told me before he died? He was a prisoner of war during Earth's third global conflict. Spent 3 years in an enemy camp, tortured daily, watching his friends die one by one. Vex 9 listened with growing interest. Understanding human psychology was crucial to their research. He told me that the secret to surviving captivity wasn't in being strong enough to endure the pain. It was in being stubborn enough to refuse to let your captors win. Every day you don't break is a victory. Every moment you keep your dignity is a defeat for them. And yet he was still a prisoner, still helpless, and was he? Sarah's eyes gleamed. He escaped 3 times. They caught him each time, but that wasn't the point. The point was that he never stopped trying, never stopped being human, and when the war ended, he came home to tell his story to his children and grandchildren. The conversation continued for hours. Vex 9 found himself drawn into Sarah's tales of human resilience throughout history. She spoke of soldiers who held impossible positions against overwhelming odds, of civilians who hid refugees at the cost of their own lives, of scientists who died protecting their research from those who would misuse it. What disturbed Vex 9 most was that Sarah wasn't trying to impress him or gain sympathy. She was simply stating facts about her species with the same matter-of-fact tone one might use to describe the weather. To her, this level of sacrifice and determination was normal. Your species is inefficient, Vex 9 observed. All this suffering could be avoided through simple surrender. Surrender isn't simple for humans. It's extinction. Sarah sat back down, her gaze never leaving the Zephyrian commander. We've learned that giving up today means there might not be a tomorrow for our children. So we fight, even when fighting seems hopeless. Over the following days, Vex 9 found himself returning to Sarah's cell more frequently. Their conversations ranged from human history to philosophy, from military tactics to cultural traditions. The Zephyrian commander began to realize that breaking this human would require understanding her species in ways his scientists had never considered. Meanwhile, Sarah was gathering intelligence of her own. Through careful observation and strategic questioning, she learned about the ship's layout, the guard rotations, and most importantly, the Zephyrians' own psychological weaknesses. They were a hive mind species, used to collective decision-making and shared consciousness. Individual initiative was rare among them, which explained why they were so baffled by human independence. They had evolved as a cooperative species on a harsh world where survival required absolute unity. This knowledge gave Sarah an advantage. She began to exploit their collective mentality by introducing contradictions and uncertainties into their research. When different interrogators asked the same question, she gave slightly different answers. Each one technically true, but creating confusion when compared to the others. The Zephyrian scientific approach, which relied on consistent data and predictable patterns, began to break down when faced with human complexity. Sarah's responses were logical but contradictory, honest but misleading, cooperative but ultimately useless for their purposes. Dr. Keth 4, the lead researcher, complained to Vex 9 about the inconsistencies in their data. The human's responses follow no clear pattern. She appears to be answering truthfully, but our analysis algorithms cannot process the information coherently. Perhaps the fault lies not with our algorithms, but with our assumptions, Vex 9 suggested. His conversations with Sarah had begun to change his perspective on human nature. You sound as if you admire this creature. I am beginning to understand why humans have proven so difficult to defeat in our territorial conflicts. They do not think as we do. Their decision-making processes are individual rather than collective, which makes them unpredictable. Dr. Keth 4's mandibles clicked in irritation. Unpredictability is a weakness. It leads to poor coordination and conflicting objectives. Does it? Or does it lead to innovation and adaptability that our forces cannot counter? The question hung in the air between them. For the first time since the war began, a Zephyrian commander was questioning their fundamental assumptions about their enemy. In her cell, Sarah continued her resistance. She had turned her captivity into a learning experience, studying her captors with the same intensity they studied her. Every conversation revealed new information about Zephyrian culture, technology, and military capabilities. More importantly, she was beginning to plant seeds of doubt in their minds. Her refusal to break was forcing them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humans. The psychological pressure was shifting in her favor. The Zephyrians had expected to break her within days. Instead, after weeks of captivity, Sarah remained unbroken while her captors grew increasingly uncertain about their methods and objectives. She was proving that sometimes the prisoner could become the teacher, and the captors could become the students. The alarm that woke Sarah from her meditation was unlike anything she had heard during her month of captivity. It wasn't the usual shift change signal or meal delivery chime. This was urgent, aggressive, and getting louder by the second. Emergency lights bathed the detention block in pulsing red illumination. Through the force field of her cell, Sarah could see Zephyrian guards running past in formations she had never witnessed before. Their usual methodical movements had been replaced by something approaching panic. "What's happening?" She called out to a passing guard but received no response. Minutes later, Commander Vex 9 appeared at her cell, his compound eyes darting between Sarah and a communication device attached to his arm. His usually calm demeanor showed cracks of stress that Sarah found interesting. "Your people have found you," he said without preamble. Sarah's heart jumped, but she kept her expression neutral. "My people? A human fleet has entered our system. 3 dreadnoughts and a dozen escort vessels. They are demanding your return." Vex 9 studied her reaction carefully. "How did they track you here?" The question revealed more than Vex 9 intended. Sarah realized that the Zephyrians had assumed she was just another casualty of war, that her disappearance would go unnoticed among the chaos of military conflicts. They had underestimated human loyalty just as much as they had underestimated human resilience. Every human life matters to us, Sarah said simply. We don't leave people behind. Impossible. No species commits such resources to retrieve a single individual. The cost-benefit analysis makes no sense. Sarah almost laughed. You're trying to apply logic to love, Commander. That's your first mistake. The communication device on Vex 9's arm chattered with rapid updates in the Zephyrian language. Sarah caught enough words to understand that the human fleet had not come alone. Reports mentioned Andromedan battle cruisers and even a few Centauri strike ships. Her rescue had become an alliance operation, you see, Sarah continued, watching Vex 9's growing discomfort. Humans build friendships, not just military alliances. Those other ships aren't here because of treaties or trade agreements. They're here because their crews respect human determination. They've seen what we do for each other, and they want to be part of something that meaningful. Dr. Keth 4 burst into the detention block, his scientific calm completely shattered. Commander, the human fleet is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're not just demanding the return of their captain. They're offering medical aid to our wounded, food supplies for our civilians, and technological exchanges for peaceful cooperation. They're what? Vex 9 turned to stare at his subordinate. Even while demanding your return, they're offering assistance to us. Our sociologists cannot explain this behavior pattern. Sarah felt a surge of pride in her species. Even in the middle of a rescue operation, humans were thinking about helping others. It was exactly what she would have expected from her people. Let me guess, Sarah said to Vex 9. Your models predicted they would come in shooting, demanding my return through force of arms? Of course. That is the logical response to prisoner capture. But they didn't. They came offering friendship even to their enemies. That's what makes humans dangerous to species like yours, Commander. We don't just fight wars. We end them. We turn enemies into allies, conflicts into cooperation. The communication device squawked again, and Vex 9 listened to a long stream of reports. Sarah watched his body language change as the information sank in. His rigid military posture began to slump. His confident movements became hesitant. What is it? Dr. Keth 4 asked. The human admiral is requesting direct communication with me. She wants to discuss terms for your release. Vex 9 looked at Sarah with something approaching respect. She claims to be your sister. Sarah's mask of calm finally cracked. Admiral Lisa Chen is out there? You are related to their fleet commander? She's my younger sister. And if she's leading a rescue fleet, then I guarantee you that every ship out there is crewed by volunteers who chose to risk their lives for someone they've never met. Sarah stood up, her voice growing stronger. That's what you've been trying to understand about humans, isn't it? Why we don't break under pressure? It's because we're never really alone. Every human carries the love and support of every other human who came before us and stands beside us. The implications of this revelation rippled through the Zephyrian command structure over the next few hours. Their prisoner wasn't just any human soldier. She was connected to their military leadership through bonds that superseded rank and protocol. The rescue fleet hadn't come because of her strategic value. They had come because she was family. Dr. Keth 4 returned several times with updates that painted an increasingly clear picture of human social structure. The rescue fleet included Sarah's former classmates from the military academy, soldiers she had served with on previous missions, and even some Zephyrian defectors who had been inspired by stories of human honor. Your species forms bonds that our sociologists describe as illogically strong, Dr. Keth 4 reported to Sarah during one of his visits. You maintain loyalty to individuals across vast distances and time periods. You risk your lives for people you have never met simply because they share your genetic heritage or philosophical beliefs. It's not illogical, Sarah corrected. It's what makes life worth living. When you know that others will fight for you, you find the strength to fight for them. When you understand that your actions affect people you care about, you make better choices. When you believe that your life has meaning beyond your own survival, you become capable of incredible things. Commander Vex 9 requested a private meeting with Sarah that evening. His usual retinue of guards remained outside the cell, and he entered alone with what appeared to be food and medical supplies. Your sister has agreed to negotiations, but only if I can provide proof that you are unharmed and being treated well. Sarah examined the supplies he had brought. They were clearly intended as gestures of good faith. Human-compatible food, pain medication, even some reading materials in Earth Standard. And you want me to record a message saying how well you've treated me? I want you to tell the truth, whatever that might be. Sarah studied his face, looking for deception but finding only exhaustion and uncertainty. The truth is that you've tortured me, tried to break my spirit and held me against my will for over a month. The truth is that your people destroyed my ship and killed my crew, but the truth is also that you've learned something during our conversations, haven't you? Vex 9 was quiet for a long moment. I have learned that everything my people believed about humans was incomplete. You are not just another species to be catalogued and understood. You are something entirely different from anything we have encountered. Different how? You fight not just for survival but for meaning. You suffer not just from pain, but from separation from those you care about. You show loyalty not just to your pack but to abstract concepts like justice and honor. Vex 9 gestured with two of his arms. My people evolved to value efficiency and logic above all else. We cannot comprehend a species that would sacrifice efficiency for loyalty, logic for love. Sarah nodded slowly. And that's why you'll never truly defeat us, Commander. You can win battles, you can capture territory, you can even capture individual humans. But you can't break the bonds that hold us together. Every human you hurt makes the rest of us more determined to protect each other. The negotiation for Sarah's release would continue for several more days, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Zephyrians had learned that holding a human prisoner was not a simple matter of physical containment. They had captured one woman, but in doing so, they had awakened the protective instincts of an entire species and their allies. Sarah had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon was not a gun or a bomb, but the simple human refusal to surrender hope. The negotiations had been ongoing for 3 days when everything changed. Sarah was in her cell, listening to the distant sounds of activity throughout the ship, when the artificial gravity fluctuated. It was subtle, lasting only a few seconds, but it was enough to tell her that something significant was happening. Commander Vex 9 appeared at her cell looking more agitated than she had ever seen him. His compound eyes were darting between multiple communication devices, and his usually precise movements had become jerky and unpredictable. Your sister is not behaving according to our projections, he announced without greeting. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What did Lisa do now? She has requested permission to come aboard our vessel, alone, unarmed. She claims she wishes to speak with her sister before any formal prisoner exchange can take place. This was so typically Lisa that Sarah had to suppress a smile. Her younger sister had always been the more diplomatic of the Chen family, but she had also inherited their father's stubbornness and their mother's protective instincts. And you think it's a trick? Of course it is a trick. No military commander would put themselves at such risk without some hidden advantage. Your human fleet must have some plan we cannot detect. Sarah shook her head. It's not a trick, Commander. It's just Lisa being Lisa. She probably wants to make sure I'm really okay before she agrees to whatever terms you're negotiating. She's also probably curious about you. Curious about us? Lisa is a xenobiologist by training, remember? Before she became a fleet commander, she spent years studying alien cultures and psychology. Meeting you face to face would be the opportunity of a lifetime for her. Vex 9 processed this information with visible difficulty. The concept of intellectual curiosity overriding military caution was apparently as foreign to him as emotional attachment, overriding logical efficiency. 2 hours later, Sarah watched through her cell's small window as a human shuttle approached the Zephyrian vessel. The ship was sleek and unarmed, just as Lisa had promised. Sarah felt a familiar mix of pride and exasperation. Her sister's courage had always bordered on recklessness. The entire detention block seemed to hold its breath as Admiral Lisa Chen was escorted through the corridors. Sarah could hear the click of Zephyrian claws against metal, punctuated by the softer sound of human footsteps. When the group finally appeared outside her cell, Sarah felt her composure crack for the first time since her capture. Lisa looked older than Sarah remembered, with new lines around her eyes and silver threads in her black hair. But her posture was straight, her gaze steady, and her smile was warm despite the circumstances. Hello. Sarah, you look terrible. Sarah laughed, surprised by the sound of her own voice showing emotion. You should see the other guys. I intend to. Lisa turned to Commander Vex 9 with professional courtesy. Thank you for allowing this meeting. I know it represents considerable risk for your people. Vex 9 studied Lisa with the same intense curiosity he had shown toward Sarah. Your request was unexpected. Our tactical analyst could not determine your motivation. My motivation is simple. I wanted to see my sister and assess her condition before we proceed with formal negotiations. I also wanted to meet the people who have been keeping her. Lisa's tone was diplomatic but firm. Understanding leads to better outcomes for everyone involved. Dr. Keth 4, who had accompanied the group, stepped forward with obvious excitement. Admiral Chen, your psychological profile suggests high intelligence and strategic thinking ability. Would you be willing to answer some questions for our research? Lisa glanced at Sarah, who nodded almost imperceptibly. I would be happy to participate in cultural exchange, Doctor. What would you like to know? The questions that followed revealed just how much the Zephyrians had learned during Sarah's captivity, and how much they still didn't understand. Dr. Keth 4 asked about human family structures, military loyalty, and decision-making processes. Lisa answered with the patience of a teacher, explaining concepts that the Zephyrians found baffling. Your species maintains emotional connections across vast distances and time periods, Dr. Keth 4 observed. This seems inefficient from a survival perspective. Inefficient in the short term, perhaps, Lisa agreed. But it provides long-term advantages. Humans who know they are loved and supported take greater risks, work harder, and recover more quickly from setbacks. Our emotional connections make us stronger, not weaker. Yet your sister has been our prisoner for over a month. These connections did not protect her from capture. Lisa's smile took on a sharp edge, didn't they? Sarah's capture brought a rescue fleet with representatives from 6 different species. Her imprisonment has sparked the largest cooperative military action in this sector's history. I would hardly call that ineffective protection. Commander Vex 9 intervened before Dr. Keth 4 could respond. Admiral, your fleet's presence has created a difficult situation for our people. We cannot simply release your sister without addressing the broader implications of this incident. I understand your position, Commander. That's why I came here personally. Sometimes complex problems require simple solutions. What do you propose? Lisa looked directly at Sarah. A cultural exchange program. Instead of treating this incident as a military conflict, we treat it as an opportunity for mutual understanding. Sarah has clearly learned a great deal about your people during her time here. You've learned about human psychology from studying her. Why not formalize this exchange? The proposal caught everyone off guard. Sarah could see the wheels turning in Vex 9's mind as he considered the implications. A formal exchange program would provide cover for releasing Sarah while giving the Zephyrians something valuable in return. You would be willing to leave other humans among our people for study? Not for study, for cooperation. Lisa's distinction was subtle but important. We would exchange scientists, diplomats, and military observers. Both species would benefit from learning about each other's capabilities and perspectives. Dr. Keth 4 practically vibrated with excitement. The research opportunities would be unprecedented. We could study human psychology in controlled conditions while allowing humans to observe our social structures. Sarah watched the negotiation with growing admiration for her sister's diplomatic skills. Lisa had taken a military crisis and transformed it into an opportunity for peace. She had offered the Zephyrians something they wanted more than a single prisoner: knowledge and understanding. Over the next several hours, the basic framework of an exchange program took shape. Sarah would be released immediately as a gesture of good faith. In return, a team of human scientists and diplomats would remain with the Zephyrian fleet to begin preliminary cooperation programs. There is one condition, Commander Vex 9 announced as the negotiations neared completion. Captain Chen must be part of the exchange program. Her insights into human psychology have proven valuable to our research. Sarah expected Lisa to object, but her sister simply nodded. If Sarah agrees, she can serve as our military liaison. Her experience with your people would make her an ideal ambassador. All eyes turned to Sarah. After weeks of captivity, she was being offered not just freedom, but the chance to turn her imprisonment into something meaningful. She could help build bridges between 2 species that had been enemies. I accept, Sarah said without hesitation. But I have one condition of my own. What condition? Vex 9 asked. I want to help design the exchange program protocols. If we're going to do this right, we need to make sure both species benefit equally. No one gets to be a test subject. Everyone participates as an equal partner. Lisa's smile was proud and warm. That sounds like my sister. The formal prisoner exchange would take place the following day, but the real exchange had already begun. Sarah had proven that humans could not be broken by force or fear. Now she would prove that they could not be defeated by hatred or misunderstanding either. The war between humans and Zephyrians was about to become something entirely different. A partnership built on mutual respect and shared curiosity about the universe and each other. The prisoner exchange ceremony took place in the docking bay of the Zephyrian vessel, with representatives from both fleets present. Sarah stood between two worlds, literally and figuratively, as she watched the carefully choreographed handover of personnel. 3 human scientists and 2 diplomats would remain with the Zephyrian fleet as part of the new exchange program. In return, 5 Zephyrian researchers would accompany the human fleet to observe their military and social structures. Sarah would split her time between both groups, serving as translator and cultural guide. Admiral Lisa Chen stood at attention in her dress uniform, every inch the professional fleet commander, but Sarah could see the relief in her sister's eyes as they completed the formal protocols. Commander Vex-9 was equally formal, but his posture showed a new kind of respect that hadn't been there during Sarah's captivity. Captain Chen, Vex-9 addressed her as the ceremony concluded. Your time among my people has changed how we understand humanity. I hope our continued cooperation will be equally enlightening. Sarah nodded, understanding the deeper meaning in his words. Commander, you tried to break me because you thought I was just another specimen to be studied. What you discovered is that humans become stronger when we're challenged, not weaker. We're going to use that strength to build something better between our species. Dr. Keth IV approached with what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement among his people. Captain, I have prepared extensive documentation of our research findings during your captivity. Would you be willing to review them and provide your perspective? Doctor, I'd be happy to help you understand what you learned. But first, I think you need to understand what you didn't learn. This caught the attention of everyone present. Lisa raised an eyebrow, recognizing her sister's tone. It was the voice Sarah used when she was about to teach someone an important lesson. During my month in your custody, you studied me as an individual specimen. You tried to understand human psychology by breaking down my responses to stress, pain, and isolation. But you missed the most important factor. What factor? Dr. Keth IV asked. I was never alone. Every moment of my captivity, I carried the strength of every human who had faced similar trials and survived. My grandfather's stories, my sister's love, my crew's sacrifice, the knowledge that my people would never stop looking for me. You weren't studying one human. You were studying the collective strength of our entire species. Commander Vex-9 clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. This explains the inconsistencies in our data. You responded not as an individual, but as a representative of your people. Exactly. And that's why the exchange program will work. You're not just getting a few human observers. You're getting access to thousands of years of human experience, innovation, and wisdom. In return, we get to learn from a species that has mastered cooperation and logical thinking in ways we never have. The next phase of Sarah's journey began immediately. She found herself shuttling between the human and Zephyrian fleets, helping both sides navigate the complex process of cultural exchange. The challenges were immediate and significant. Dr. Keth IV's counterpart, Dr. Sarah Okafor from the University of New Geneva, struggled with Zephyrian communication patterns that relied heavily on chemical signals and collective decision-making. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian researchers were baffled by human concepts like intuition, inspiration, and individual creativity. Sarah's first major breakthrough came during a joint research session where both teams were trying to analyze human military tactics. The Zephyrians couldn't understand why human commanders often made decisions that contradicted logical analysis, while the humans couldn't explain their thought processes in terms the Zephyrians could quantify. Let me try a different approach, Sarah suggested during one particularly frustrating session. Commander Vex-9, describe how your people make battle decisions. All relevant data is collected and analyzed collectively. The optimal solution is determined through consensus and implemented uniformly across all units. And Dr. Okafor, how do humans make the same decisions? We gather as much information as possible. but individual commanders make final decisions based on their experience, training, and intuition. Different commanders might choose different tactics even with identical information. Sarah nodded. The difference is that Zephyrians optimize for consistency and efficiency, while humans optimize for adaptability and innovation. Your approach works better when conditions are predictable. Ours works better when conditions are chaotic or unexpected. This insight opened the door to more productive collaboration. Instead of trying to prove one approach was superior, both species began exploring how their different decision-making styles could complement each other. The breakthrough came during a simulated battle exercise that Admiral Lisa had suggested. Mixed teams of humans and Zephyrians were asked to develop strategies for defending a colony against various attack scenarios. The results were remarkable. Teams that used Zephyrian collective analysis for initial planning and human individual creativity for tactical adaptation consistently outperformed single-species teams. The Zephyrians provided thorough preparation and coordination, while the humans provided flexibility and innovation. This is unprecedented, Dr. Keth-4 reported to Commander Vex-9. The hybrid strategies show efficiency gains of 30 to 40% over our standard approaches, Sarah. Watch the excitement building among both research teams. You see, this is what humans mean when we talk about the strength that comes from diversity. Different perspectives don't weaken the group. They make it more capable. The success of the military exercises led to expanded cooperation in other areas. Human engineers worked with Zephyrian technicians to improve ship designs. Zephyrian doctors collaborated with human medics to develop new treatment protocols. Cultural exchange programs began sharing art, music, and literature between the species. But perhaps the most significant development was personal. Sarah found herself forming genuine friendships with her former captors. Commander Vex-9, in particular, began showing qualities that reminded her of her human colleagues: curiosity, humor, and a deep commitment to protecting his people. During one of their evening conversations, Vex-9 asked her a question that had been troubling him. "Captain Chen, why did your people come for you? Not the tactical reasons or the strategic implications. Why did your sister risk her fleet and her career to save one individual?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "Because that's what love looks like in action, Commander. Lisa didn't come for me because I was strategically valuable. She came because I'm her sister, and sisters don't abandon each other. The fleet didn't follow her because they were ordered to. They followed because they understood that if we don't protect each other, we lose what makes us human in the first place. But the risk of losing me was less important than the risk of becoming the kind of people who would abandon me. Do you understand the difference?" Vex-9 was quiet for a long moment. "I am beginning to. Your species values the preservation of your moral identity as much as your physical survival. More than our physical survival in many cases. We'd rather die as humans than live as something else." This conversation would prove to be a turning point in Zephyrian understanding of human psychology. For the first time, they began to grasp that human behavior wasn't just about individual or even species survival. It was about maintaining an identity and value system that gave life meaning beyond mere existence. The exchange program was succeeding beyond anyone's expectations, and Sarah was at the center of it all. The woman they had thought they could break had instead become the architect of a new relationship between two species. Her refusal to surrender had opened the door to cooperation that neither side had thought possible. But the real test of this new partnership was still to come. The emergency alert came without warning, shattering the peaceful routine that had developed aboard the joint human-Zephyrian research fleet. Sarah was in the middle of a cultural exchange session when the ship's communication systems erupted with urgent messages in multiple languages. Unknown vessels approaching. Configuration suggests void hunters. All units to battle stations. Sarah felt her blood turn cold. The void hunters were a nomadic species that had been terrorizing this sector for decades. Unlike the territorial conflicts between humans and Zephyrians, the void hunters were pure predators. They consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but lifeless rock. Behind, Commander Vex-9 burst into the research bay where Sarah had been working with Dr. Keth-4 and Dr. Okafor. His compound eyes showed the rapid movements that indicated extreme stress among his people. "Captain Chen, we need your expertise immediately. A void hunter fleet has emerged from jump space at the edge of the system. Our sensors indicate at least 20 vessels, including 3 of their planet-killer ships. Sarah's military training took over instantly. What's their heading? Straight for Kepler 442b. The civilian population there numbers over 2 million, mostly Zephyrian colonists, but also human settlements and refugee camps from other species. The situation was a nightmare scenario. The combined human-Zephyrian fleet was designed for research and cultural exchange, not major combat operations. Against a full Void Hunter invasion force, they would be hopelessly outmatched. How long until they reach the planet? Sarah asked, her mind already calculating tactical options. 18 hours at their current speed. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, running through everything she knew about Void Hunter tactics and capabilities. When she opened them again, both Vex 9 and Dr. Keth 4 could see the human determination that had sustained her through captivity. We can't stop them with conventional tactics. Our fleets aren't equipped for this level of combat. But we might be able to delay them long enough for civilian evacuation. Evacuation of 2 million beings in 18 hours? Dr. Keth 4's voice carried the logical despair of calculated impossibility. Even with every transport vessel in the system, we could save perhaps 10% of the population. Then we need to buy more time. Sarah turned to Commander Vex 9. I need to speak with both fleet commanders immediately. We're going to try something that's never been attempted before. Within an hour, the senior staff of both fleets had assembled in the main conference room of Admiral Lisa Chen's flagship. The mixed group of humans, Zephyrians, and other allied species faced the tactical display showing the approaching Void Hunter fleet with grim determination. Sarah stood before the assembled officers, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether the cultural exchange program would end in tragedy or triumph. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored colleagues, she began, addressing the mixed audience in the protocol that had been developed during the exchange program. We face an enemy that neither of our species has successfully defeated alone. The Void Hunters have advantages in firepower, numbers, and combat experience that make a conventional engagement suicidal. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Everyone present understood the mathematical reality of their situation. However, we have an advantage that the Void Hunters have never encountered before. For the first time in the history of this conflict, we have human adaptability combined with Zephyrian coordination. We have 2 species working together instead of separately. Admiral Lisa Chen leaned forward. What are you proposing, Captain? A tactical approach that combines our strengths. Zephyrian precision and planning to create opportunities. Human improvisation and risk-taking to exploit them. We use our cultural differences as weapons instead of obstacles. Commander Vex 9 clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Elaborate. Sarah activated the tactical display, showing the approaching Void Hunter formation. The Void Hunters rely on overwhelming force and predictable responses from their enemies. They've developed standard tactics for dealing with every known species, but they've never faced a coordinated human Zephyrian force. Specifically, Admiral Chen pressed, we split our forces into mixed teams. Each team combines Zephyrian analytical capabilities with human tactical creativity. The Zephyrians identify weak points and optimal attack vectors. The humans improvise methods to exploit those weaknesses in ways the Void Hunters won't anticipate. Dr. Keth 4 raised an objection. Captain, our species have fundamental differences in decision-making speed and communication protocols. Real-time coordination in combat would be extremely difficult, which is why we've been practicing for the past month without realizing it, Sarah replied with a smile. Every cultural exchange session, every joint research project, every conversation between our peoples has been training for this moment. We've learned to understand each other's thought processes and communication styles. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The cultural exchange program hadn't just been about understanding each other. It had been preparing both species for exactly this kind of challenge. Admiral Chen stood up, her command presence filling the room. Captain Chen, you're suggesting we stake the lives of 2 million civilians on an untested tactical theory based on a month of cultural exchange. Yes, ma'am. I am. And if you're wrong, Sarah met her sister's gaze steadily. If I'm wrong, those people die anyway. The Void Hunters don't take prisoners, and we don't have enough ships to evacuate the planet. But if I'm right, we prove that cooperation between our species can accomplish things that neither of us could do alone. Commander Vex 9 spoke into the silence that followed. Admiral Chen, Captain Chen's proposal has logical merit. Our tactical simulations have consistently shown improved performance when our species work together. The risk is enormous, but the alternative is certain defeat. The debate that followed was brief but intense. Military officers from both species raised valid concerns about coordination, communication, and command authority. But as Sarah had hoped, the month of working together had built trust and understanding that made rapid agreement possible. The final vote was unanimous. They would attempt the first fully integrated human Zephyrian military operation in the history of both species. The next 16 hours were a blur of preparation and coordination. Mixed crews transferred between ships, establishing communication protocols and tactical assignments. Human pilots learned to work with Zephyrian navigators. Zephyrian gunners practiced responding to human tactical commands. Engineers from both species collaborated on last-minute modifications to weapons and defensive systems. Sarah found herself at the center of it all, translating not just languages but entire ways of thinking about combat and cooperation. She helped human commanders understand Zephyrian analytical methods while teaching Zephyrian officers to appreciate human intuitive decision-making. As the Void Hunter fleet approached the outer edge of the system, the combined human Zephyrian force moved to intercept them. The formation that met the enemy was unlike anything seen before in galactic warfare. Mixed squadrons operating with precision and creativity that neither species could have achieved alone. The battle for Kepler 442b was about to begin, and it would test everything Sarah had learned about the strength that comes from refusing to surrender to despair, division, or defeat. The woman they had thought they could break was now leading both species into a fight that would prove whether cooperation was stronger than conquest. The Battle of Kepler 442b began with an advantage that lasted exactly 43 seconds. The Void Hunter fleet emerged from their final jump expecting to face the usual desperate resistance of a doomed system. Instead, they encountered something that violated every tactical assumption in their databases. A perfectly coordinated formation of human and Zephyrian vessels operating as a single, unified force. Sarah watched from the bridge of the hybrid command ship Unity, where human tactical displays interfaced seamlessly with Zephyrian analytical systems. Commander Vex-9 stood at her right side, Admiral Lisa Chen at her left, representing the impossible cooperation that was about to be tested against the galaxy's most feared predators. Void Hunter formation is responding exactly as our models predicted, reported Dr. Keth 4 from his tactical analysis station. They are deploying standard intimidation patterns, expecting panic and disorganized retreat. Time to show them why that's a mistake, Sarah replied. Opening communication channels to all mixed squadrons. All units, this is Unity Command. Execute Pattern Alpha. Remember, we're not just fighting for a planet today. We're proving that cooperation is stronger than conquest. The battle that followed would be studied for generations as a masterpiece of interspecies military coordination. Human creativity identified unconventional attack vectors, while Zephyrian precision exploited them with devastating efficiency. Mixed crews responded to threats and opportunities with reaction times that neither species could achieve alone. Squadron Leader Martinez, flying wing with a Zephyrian navigator called Tech 7, demonstrated the new tactics perfectly. As Void Hunter interceptors moved to engage, Tech 7's analytical programs identified a weakness in their formation structure. Martinez immediately improvised a spiraling attack pattern that exploited the gap, allowing their squadron to punch through the enemy screen and target the larger vessels beyond. This is impossible, the Void Hunter fleet commander transmitted on open frequencies, his translator struggling with concepts his species had no words for. Your vessels should not be able to coordinate with such precision. Your species are enemies. Admiral Chen responded with the calm professionalism that had made her a fleet commander. We were enemies. Now we're something better. We're partners. The tide of battle shifted multiple times over the next 6 hours. The Void Hunters had advantages in firepower and armor that couldn't be overcome through tactics alone. But every time they adapted to the hybrid forces' strategies, Sarah and her team found new approaches that their enemy had never encountered. The breakthrough came when Sarah realized that the Void Hunters' greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Their hive-mind coordination made them incredibly efficient, but it also made them predictable. Like the Zephyrians, they had trouble adapting to individual initiative and creative thinking. All units, this is Unity Command. Execute Pattern Omega. Individual squadrons are free to improvise based on local conditions. Zephyrian analysis teams provide continuous tactical updates. Human flight leaders make final tactical decisions. What followed was organized chaos that the Void Hunters couldn't counter. Every human Zephyrian team began fighting differently, responding to the unique combination of analytical data and creative inspiration that their mixed crews provided. The enemy found themselves facing not one coordinated strategy, but dozens of improvised tactics that worked together through mutual understanding, rather than central control. The turning point came when Commander Vex 9 identified a critical weakness in the Void Hunter planet killer ships. Their massive weapons required precise power coordination that could be disrupted if their support vessels were eliminated in a specific sequence. "I can see the vulnerability," Vex 9 reported, "but exploiting it would require simultaneous attacks on 12 targets with split-second timing. The margin for error is essentially zero." Sarah looked at the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. What if we don't try for perfect timing? What if we use human unpredictability to our advantage? Explain. The Void Hunters are expecting us to either attempt precise coordination or random attacks. What if we do something in between? Each squadron attacks their assigned target when they judge the moment is right, trusting that the others will do the same. It was a plan that violated every principle of military coordination. Success would depend entirely on the trust and understanding that human and Zephyrian crews had built during their month of working together. "That's insane," Admiral Chen observed. "It could work brilliantly or it could be a complete disaster." "Sometimes insane is exactly what the situation requires," Sarah replied. "All units, this is Unity Command. Execute Pattern Impossible. Trust your instincts, trust your partners, and trust each other." The final assault on the Void Hunter planet killers lasted 14 minutes and became the stuff of legend. 12 mixed squadrons approached their targets independently, each crew using their combined human Zephyrian capabilities to judge the perfect moment to strike. One by one, the support vessels fell. Not in perfect synchronization, but in a rhythm that emerged from mutual understanding and shared purpose. As each target was eliminated, the remaining crews adjusted their timing based on feedback from their allies, creating a cascade effect that the Void Hunters couldn't counter. When the last planet killer ship exploded, taking the enemy flagship with it, the surviving Void Hunter vessels fled the system without attempting to regroup. For the first time in decades, they had been not just defeated, but completely outmatched by opponents they had expected to crush easily. The celebration that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human cheers mixed with Zephyrian harmonics as crews from both species embraced the victory they had achieved together. But for Sarah, the real victory wasn't in the battle they had won. It was in the transformation they had undergone. Standing on the bridge of the Unity, surrounded by friends who had once been enemies, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The Zephyrians had tried to break her because they thought human strength was an individual trait that could be isolated and studied. What they had discovered was that human strength came from connection, cooperation, and the refusal to surrender hope. Captain Chen, Commander Vex 9, approached her as the fleet began the journey back to Kepler 442b. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For believing that capturing you would teach us how to defeat humanity. What it actually taught us was how to become something better than we were before." Sarah smiled, feeling the satisfaction of a mission truly accomplished. "That's what humans do, Commander. We don't just survive our challenges. We use them to become stronger, kinder, and more capable of protecting the people we care about." Dr. Keth Ford joined their conversation, his excitement obvious in the rapid clicking of his mandibles. "Captain, the implications of today's victory extend far beyond military tactics. We have proven that interspecies cooperation can achieve results that neither species could accomplish alone. This will revolutionize how galactic civilizations interact with each other. More importantly," Admiral Chen added as she approached the group, "we've proven that former enemies can become true allies when they're willing to understand each other, instead of just trying to defeat each other." The journey back to Kepler 442b took 3 days, during which the mixed crews continued to work together as naturally as if they had been partners for years. The cultural exchange program that had begun with Sarah's imprisonment had evolved into something that neither species had imagined possible. A genuine partnership based on mutual respect and shared values. When the news of the victory reached Earth and the Zephyrian homeworld, it sparked celebrations and diplomatic initiatives that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. But for Sarah, the most meaningful moment came during a quiet conversation with her sister as they approached the planet they had saved. "Do you think the Zephyrians really understand what they've learned?" Lisa asked. Sarah looked out at the mixed formation of human and Zephyrian vessels flying in perfect harmony around them. "They understand that humans can't be broken by force or fear. They understand that our strength comes from our connections to each other. Most importantly, they understand that those connections can extend beyond our own species when others prove themselves worthy of trust. And what have we learned? That sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to help them become a friend. That cooperation is stronger than conquest, and that the human spirit isn't just about refusing to surrender to despair. It's about using that refusal to build something better for everyone." The woman they had thought they could break had instead broken down the barriers between two species. Her refusal to surrender had opened the door to a future where former enemies could stand together against threats that neither could face alone. As the combined fleet entered orbit around Kepler Chatankortube, Sarah knew that this was not the end of her story, but the beginning of something much larger. The galaxy was about to learn what humans had always known, that strength shared is strength multiplied, and that the greatest victories come not from defeating others, but from helping them become their best selves. The human spirit, tested in captivity and proven in battle, had transformed not just two species but the very